Happy Friday, guys. We got another video lesson here ready to go. Now, before we jump into it, just know right after we get through the objective slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about Monday the 14th of September and what you guys are supposed to. So if you're watching this after, if you review and you're watching this after, don't worry about that slide. You can skip ahead. But if you're watching this on Friday or over the weekend, make sure that you listen to that section on Monday, because Monday's going to be a little different than normal. So, our objective today, we're going to explain how different forms of government developed and changed as a result of the Revolutionary period. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to talk about that very initial, very early baby version of the U.S. government. Got some key terms here to help us out. And then for the big brain question of the day, and it's going to help on your exit ticket again, identify the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation and why would they need to be fixed. Keep that in mind. So, let's go ahead and move forward. All right. So Monday, September 14th. Log into Zoom, normal time, everything like that. I'm going to give you some quick instructions on how to do stuff. I'm going to put up a slide that'll have the code and the link and all that stuff to get into AP Classroom. Most of you are already in there, so you don't have to worry, but there's a few you who aren't. And then you're going to work on Progress Track 2. It's going to be multiple choice, and it's going to be one FRQ. Once you do both of those, they'll be live, then they'll close. You are good to go. You do not need to stay. You can leave. I won't be there the whole time. So it'll just be you guys getting that done and then taking off. But make sure you get it done, because I'll be there to open it up and intro you. And then it'll be all on your own. And you have to get it done. It'll be a grade just like the first one was. So with that said, let's get started. Articles of Confederation. We already talked about the objective. Let's get into the first key point, shall we? So, many new state constitutions placed power in the hands of the legislative branch and maintained property qualifications for voting and citizenship. That's just the truth of the matter. We talked about this already, right? States started creating their own governments after the Revolution, and in those constitutions, people still needed to own property in order to vote, be citizens or full citizens. And most of the power is in the hands of a legislative branch, which legislation is lawmaking, so a lawmaking branch. And I want to talk about the two basic these are basic forms of government that we're going to see. Those are strong government and weak government. So weak governments are obvious. They're governments that cannot tax citizens, control people, or have a leader. They don't have leaders typically. It's very hard for weak governments to get anything done. And if I'm being honest, a government that's weak is almost kind of pointless, because yes, it's there. They can say, hey, we're the government, but they can't do anything. Now, a strong government can do a whole lot of things: create an army, tax citizens, have a leader in charge. But if a government's too strong, you get what you have in certain European nations, right? With, like, when we were talking about King Louis and how he could do whatever he wants, or a Russian Tsar who could do whatever he wants, or old British monarchs who can do whatever they want. And basically what I'm showing you here, and this is a little peek into next week, during the Revolution and for a few years after, we have something called the Articles of Confederation. That's our first system of government, and it's weak. I want you to think of weak SpongeBob arm. And then later we will have to develop a new constitution, a new government that is stronger, so we can actually govern ourselves better than we could before. And I want you to think of Sandy Cheeks, right? The Sandy arm here, and the strong arm. And that's the Constitution, and it'll be made a little later, and we're going to get into that in a bit. And as we do, I want you to keep in mind, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in regards to the Articles of Confederation, because there's not very much good. There's one thing that is good, though. So let's move on. Let's get into those key points. So key point 2. As settlers moved westward during the 1780s, post-revolution, Congress enacted the Northwest Ordinance for admitting new states. The ordinance promoted public education, the protection of private property, and a ban on slavery in the Northwest Territory. This is super important. There's basically going to be a set of guidelines that 5 new states can use. 5 new states, yeah, we got them. But slavery is banned in all 5 states. Remember, I told you slavery was something that was on the decline in the United States like it was everywhere else. But in 1793, Eli Whitney's going to come around and mess it up when he creates the cotton gin. He makes slavery too profitable to be ignored. All right, not to say that it would have gone away. We don't know. We will never know if it would have gone away on its own. But you can look at what happened in the rest of the world, because when we talked about it, right, 1600s, it's global. But by the time you get to the 1700s, it's very small. It's a smaller market. And then by the time you get to the 1800s, like I think in 1830, England will just ban slavery in all of its territories. Just like, hey, it's banned. They don't have to fight a war for it. Unfortunately, we did. It's not a good thing. And part of why is that U.S. dependence on it. But that dependence isn't there yet. These are banned, and slavery is banned with it because a lot of these people know that it's something that they don't want to keep around forever. Not to say that they're good people or they're abolitionists or anything like that, but they're trying to get rid of it at a sense. So let's talk about the Northwest Ordinance. 1787 is when it's established. And again, it's in the Northwest Territory right here. It's a better map. And it was once the area had enough territory for people to live there and enough people living there, and they created a government, they could become a state. And the legacy of the Northwest Ordinance is later on, when we talk about Manifest Destiny in a bit, you'll get this system that is designed to make sure that states have a process, a method, a way to develop new states. Or the United States has a way to admit new states. Like, hey, you need to hit these things on the checklist. Population is 60,000. You need to create your own constitution. You need to do this, this, that. And those rules will bend a little bit, but the main ones stay there, and they come from the Northwest Ordinance. And once that's done, you can apply to become a state, and then you're accepted in the state. So this is the good. This is the one good thing that came out of the Articles of Confederation. The one good thing. One good thing, what's it called? Northwest Ordinance. So, key point 3 coming up. The Articles of Confederation unified the newly independent states, creating a central government with limited power. After the revolution, though, difficulties over trade, finances, interstate commerce, which means buying and selling between states, foreign relations, and internal unrest will lead to calls for a stronger government. So, background about the Articles of Confederation. They were developed during the revolution. Fighting had already started. The Articles government could create an army. They couldn't create an army. They could declare war. They could make treaties. And that's kind of it. You know, they basically are good at doing anything that is fighting a war with England. When it comes to doing anything else, like governing, like creating a new army, they can't do that. The army was created under a different rule, the Continental Army, and once the war is over, the Continental Army is gone. They can't collect taxes, which is a big problem, because if you're a government, there's basically one thing you need to be able to do, and that's collect taxes so you have money. They can't do that. They can make money, but it doesn't matter if they can't collect taxes in order to help back that money. That money's useless, and it will be. And so the Articles government is super weak. It's a bad government. So, what does it look like? It's a unicameral legislature. What does that mean? It means one house, one group. And it has a weak national government. There's no executive, which means there's no leader. There's no judicial, which means there's no court system. And they could not regulate trade between states. So one state might say, hey, we're selling lumber and it's super cheap. And another state might be like, hey, well, we're selling that lumber and it's twice as much. And if they want to sell to each other or in between, or, if you want to buy lumber because you live in the South and you can't get it, and in the North there's a lot, there's no way that government can regulate that stuff. It says limited taxation. They can't tax anybody. The states can tax. The federal government cannot. Each state only got one vote in this lawmaking system. And you needed either a supermajority of 2/3, which means 9 out of the 13, to approve certain laws, and in order to make changes to the government, you needed a majority. So no new taxes or amendments were created within the 10 years that the Articles were around. None, because they could never get that supermajority or the unanimous. If they couldn't get 9, they're definitely not going to get all 13. And so these are two quick terms: unicameral, one house or group; bicameral, two houses or groups. And this is going to come in handy a little later, so just keep these in mind. So we're going to move forward to the bad of the Articles. So, weaknesses: one vote for each state, regardless of size. Not very fair, not very equal. Congress is powerless to lay down and collect taxes or duties, which means money. They can't make any money. Congress is powerless to regulate foreign or interstate commerce, which means they can't control trade at all. At all. Each colony, each state had their own trade rules. That's not conducive to a strong, good, well-working government. No executive, so the Congress could say something, but then there was nobody there to to be in charge, and when they're to enforce the laws or rules they made. No national court. Every state could decide what they wanted. Remember we talked about weird state rules? Well, this is that even more so. They needed that huge majority. And basically the articles are a firm league of friendship. They are hey, we're all buddies, right? And that's about it. The states are running themselves, and that is not conducive to making good government. So this is the bad. And now the ugly. Shays Rebellion, 1786, 1787. New England is in a depression, which means they are all broke, everybody's suffering. The Massachusetts state legislature will refuse to print currency or pass pro-debtor laws, meaning they're not going to make it easy for people who owe money to pay off that money. They will enact taxes, and they will make it really, really difficult on poor, struggling farmers. Again, New England isn't the best place to farm, but a lot of these old soldiers that fought in the Revolution, they get their land, they get their pay, right, which for the most part was equivalent in just some land, and they want to just go live their lives, and they owe so much money that they can't. So Shaysite, or Daniel Shays, is a leader of these groups, and he will arm a bunch of farmers. And they will organize to close down the local courts, prevent further foreclosures because the government's going around and trying to take farms. They will kill some people. They will burn some courthouses down. They will do a lot of damage. And there's nobody to stop them. There's no army. The Congress can't create a new one. They don't have that power. There's nobody there to enforce the laws and be like, hey, stop. Like, there's nothing. The rebellion will be crushed because Eastern merchants will see these poor farmers fighting and burning stuff down, and they will fund the state militia / mercenaries. It's, depends who you talk to, and they will defeat the rebellion. So the rebellion's broke farmers who get their stuff and go and start rebelling, but well-financed militias by these businessmen in the East will put it down. And the problem with this is it raises a bunch of questions. This happens, and then everybody's like, what the hell do we do now? Like, who's to stop this from happening again? Like, what if it happens tomorrow? Everybody's all concerned. Everybody finally realizes, they wake up, their eyes wake up to the idea that maybe our government's too weak. What are we going to do about this? And so it will lead to the creation of a constitution. Shays Rebellion will lead directly to the creation of a constitution. You'll have this mini convention in 1786. It's run by Washington. A few of the states meet, and they're like, hey, what can we do? Well, we got to fix the Articles of Confederation. Fix. Okay. So then they have a constitutional convention in Philadelphia. And the question is, do we reform the Articles, or do we create a whole new government? The delegates, 55 total delegates, all white men. They're mostly wealthy, middle-aged professionals. A lot of lawyers, a lot of politicians. 19 of the 55 owned slaves. Among these guys that were delegates there, Washington, Hamilton, Madison, and Benjamin Franklin. Some of the founders of the original, Ochi Declaration and stuff. So, we will talk about the Constitution on Tuesday, right, when we come back after our progress check for period 2. So, but just know that this will set it up. And again, Shays Rebellion is a direct lead up to the Constitutional Convention. And again, I can't stress enough, the Articles of Confederation is a very, very, very weak government. It was the government we had before the current one, and it's kind of a trash can. So, on to the exit ticket. 2 parts. It's already in Google Classroom. You're going to hippo the document that's attached. It's a primary source of the AOC. And then you're going to rank the top 3 weaknesses, and you're going to tell me why those are where you put it. Kind of like how we did it with the causes of the revolution. So go ahead and do that. I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. See y'all in class.